Though, got some leftovers. Still busting.
This happened just a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
I recently graduated from college last year, and I now live about 3 hours away from where I went to school. I had a lot of friends who still go to school there, and a few weeks back I drove up for a weekend to visit with them and catch up. 4 of us went to Buffalo Wild Wings on the last night that I was there before I made my drive back home. We sat at a booth on the far side of the restaurant. Not too long after sitting down, though, there was another booth about 30 feet away or so, and I noticed a man was sticking his head above the wall of it and staring at me.
What the hell?
He had his eyes wide open and a really creepy face. I looked around to make sure he was looking at me. I figured he was joking around and I laughed, but about 10 minutes later, he did it again. He was just staring at me with really wide eyes and almost a crazy look on his face. Then he would slowly duck back down so I couldn't see him.
So get up and leave the goddamn premises!
This went on several more times.
Wow.
It went from being a possibly funny joke to just weird and annoying. My friends noticed it as well, but they mostly just thought it was funny. We all wondered who this guy was and why he was staring at me, and why he was doing it to me and nobody else. We also realized that he appeared to be alone and not with anybody. Time went by and we ended up just ignoring him. Eventually, we all left. I said my goodbyes to everybody and then had to make the drive back because it was already almost 9 p.m. As we were leaving the restaurant, I watched the guy stare me down one more time and wave at me as I walked by. He still had wide eyes and a creepy smile on his face. I got to my car and started to drive the 3 hours back home. About an hour into the drive, though, I pulled off the freeway and got some gas. After I'd filled up my tank, I was driving back to the freeway and stopped at a red light just before the exit. A car then pulled up next to me at the stoplight. I casually looked over to see the same guy driving the car next to me staring at me with his wide eyes.
You floored that mother clucking light. And you... You got gas. You can make it back home, Cluck.
And slowly waving. I got completely creeped out and took off, even though the light hadn't turned green yet. Thankfully, there weren't really any other cars out and it wasn't a problem. The guy stayed there and then didn't even follow me. I was sure of this because I was looking behind myself basically the whole rest of the drive home. It always creeps me out thinking about how the man was next to me an hour away from the Buffalo Wild Wings where we both were. Was the guy following me, or was it just a coincidence?
He'll find you.
Why was he staring at me with such a creepy face? I guess I will never know these answers.
You do know. He's gonna cluck you up. That's why he looked at you like that. I'm so hungry.
I'm a female and I work at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Alright.
I'm a server and it's a job that I've had for a little over a year now. A couple of months ago, I nearly quit though. One night I was working my regular shift and it was a pretty
Wait a minute. You said a couple months ago you nearly quit, so you didn't quit? At all. Do you still work there? After this cluck experience I'm about to hear, you still work there? Man.
night. I was serving tables, and also sometimes I would serve food to people sitting at the bar. There was this one guy sitting at the corner of the bar that I brought some food to. Right away, he tried flirting with me. This is something that would occasionally happen, and I was used to it. It didn't bother me much, but this guy, however, was a little more direct and just overall making me really uncomfortable. He was just more rude than most people. Each time I went near him, he would make some comments to me to the point where I didn't want to go near him anymore, but I did because I knew I had a job to do. I figured I could take it for a little while longer, and he stayed there for a long time, but at last I finally saw him leave. When I went to clean up the area, I saw that instead of leaving a tip, he wrote his number on the receipt and wrote for me to call him. At this point, it was late, and I was towards the end of my shift. I got frustrated when I saw this and threw it in the garbage. But as I started to walk away, I noticed something. Across the restaurant, I saw the man. He was literally hiding behind a wall and watching me. When he saw me look at him, he walked away and out of the restaurant. It was awkward that he saw me throw the receipt away, but I was glad to see him actually leave.
Nobody else see that? That's cap.
I finished working my shift, which was only for another hour. As I got off, I left the restaurant. I walked to my car across the parking lot and was almost immediately greeted by the man once again. He confronted me about throwing his number away. I told the man that he needed to leave me alone. I then walked past him and began going to my car. Thankfully, he didn't follow me, but he did curse at me as I got in my car. I drove home and did my best to forget about the incident. I worked several more times over the next week. I would say about a little over a week later, I worked a typical night and then drove home. When I got to my house, I saw there was a car already parked on the side of the road in front of it that I didn't recognize.
Oh my God.
Then, when I pulled into my driveway, my headlights shined over my house for a minute. When they did, they revealed a man seemingly trying to climb into one of my windows. When I saw this, I was in shock, and the man quickly ran away from the window and into the car parked in front of my house. He then sped away. It was the same man from the previous week. I really didn't know what to do. It wasn't until the man was gone for several minutes before I was able to compose myself and call the police. I had no idea how the man knew where I lived. The police came out, and I gave them all the information that I could. Thankfully, the man never bothered me again.
Not only does he know where you, not only is he still out there in close proximity within a 6-mile radius, he knows where you work and he knows where you live. Baby girl, you are clocked until further notice.
Buffalo Wild Wings is one of my favorite restaurants. I love their food, especially their wings, and of course, I love how they have so many TVs with sports on them all the time. Last year, I went with my friend Adam. We weren't at our normal hometown, and this was a different Buffalo Wild Wings location that we had never been to before. It wasn't too crowded, but I would say it was averagely busy for about the time of day it was, which was 9 o'clock at night. We got to sit at a booth in the corner of the restaurant, which was especially nice because it felt a little more secluded. Nobody was really sitting that close to us though anyways. We ordered, and a little while later the food came. We were eating, and as we were, our server didn't come back to us for a long time. This wasn't really a problem because we had our food, but I just wanted some more water. After a while though, there was a TV that was directly in front of us, and it suddenly went black. Then words appeared across the screen. The words were my own name as well as my friend's name, and repeated the words, "You are being watched." My friend and I both looked at each other confused, not sure if this was a joke or what. But nobody here would know who we were or anything like that, because we had never been here before. We stayed there, and our server never did come back. But eventually, somebody who did work there, who hadn't been our server, quickly walked up to us several minutes later and handed us our bills, then quickly walked away. He then came back less than a minute later, took our cards, and returned them to us and walked away again, all without saying a single word. Things had seemingly taken a very strange turn. The TV in front of us then went back to normal sports. As we were leaving, my friend and I sought out a server and asked them if there was ever a problem with the TVs. She said no and then walked away. My friend and I then left the restaurant and walked back to my car. When I was getting into my car, I was sure I heard someone whisper my name really loudly. It sounded like it came from maybe 20 feet away. I froze and listened, but heard nothing more. We left after that, and that ended a very bizarre and creepy trip to Buffalo Wild Wings.
That was weird. That was weird as hell. The first one, thank God, he didn't follow her to her car, but like, if you know somebody's watching you for a while, and you leave to go to your car, why would you leave and go directly to your car? There are so many dumbasses out here, there are so many clockasses out here, excuse me, that I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to begin. This is the board that I need to put the club names list and places on. So I'm gonna go live on YouTube fairly recently, or like in a little bit. Well, I'm gonna go. Really, I don't know when I'm gonna go live. It's gonna be soon though, either on YouTube or on Instagram. And I just want y'all to name as many places and names that you know of and that I know of, and I can put it on that board. So when I say a name, I can just point to the board right there. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.